So after I put yesterday's episode out, I finally got a chance to read through this motion to dismiss filed by Ryan Reynolds yesterday. This was the most unprofessional piece of attempt to look like a legal document I have ever seen. Ryan may have hired himself a big attorney, but instead of letting him do his job, we can see Ryan pushing these words out of that guy's mouth. This to me is Ryan with his hand so far up the back of this guy, using this lawsuit to continue to bully and harass Justin some more. This is sheer punkery. Every word of this document, except for the big words, I read it in Ryan's voice. This document breaks rules that these lawyers know good and well that they are breaking. This document is nothing but an I know the world is watching, so I'm gonna act out piece. I hope the judge calls it out. It's a legal document used every day in courts all around the country. It has specific rules. They're basic. Every lawyer starting out knows these rules, and they're just completely broken here. Completely disregarded. And we'll get to all that in a moment. This is Legal Updates with Cassidy. Motion to dismiss Ryan Reynolds all the way back to Canada. Signed, Mommy Sleuths Incorporated. Welcome. If you guessed that we're going to read Ryan Reynolds to filth today, you guessed right. His baby face has been confusing everyone for all these years into thinking that he was actually the nice guy that he played in The Proposal, for example. Which, by the way, is the only movie I can tolerate him in because I adore Sandra Bullock. But listening to all these interviews of him that are popping up around social media, he's actually been telling us who he is all this time. We just weren't listening. We didn't see past the baby face. But thanks to It Ends With Us, we're all listening now. Now, I mentioned rules in the beginning. What am I talking about? To try to explain these rules, I was thinking of a cooking show. Have you ever watched those? Things like MasterChef? In these shows, the cooks are given specific ingredients that they have to use to make a meal. They have a limited pantry of spices and vegetables to add with it, but they have to use those specific ingredients that they've been given. That's how it works with this motion to dismiss. A motion to dismiss is based on the complaint. Complaint being that first document you file when you file a lawsuit that outlines all of the wrongs that were committed against you and all of the reasons that you're suing. So this motion to dismiss is based on that amended complaint, document 50, that Justin filed just when these cases all came together as one. Think of that as the meat. That's all that Ryan or anybody else who wants to file a motion to dismiss can use to base their documents on. There's no saying, this is beef and I want turkey. You have to use the beef. They're also not the place to try the entire case. What they're meant to do is say, hey, this complaint against me can't hold up in court. So it shouldn't even make it to a trial. Let's just dismiss it because of these reasons that it fails. Everybody tries it. There are a million motions to dismiss. Very few actually make it. The standard is very, very low for letting these things get through. And if a motion to dismiss does make some good points, that's not the end of the story. The plaintiff who filed the original complaint can ask the court if they can amend that complaint. And then that amended complaint can answer all of the deficiencies that were mentioned in the motion to dismiss. That's why we saw recently Team Justin in response to Leslie Sloan's motion to dismiss and the New York Times motion to dismiss. They asked, if you grant this, please give leave for us to file this. And they can clean up any of the problems. Because see, when they first file the complaint, they don't have the full story. Not even close. They know a wrong was committed. They know who committed the wrong, but they don't have all of those little details to fully put a case together. The court understands that. The court does not expect the complaint to be the entire trial all wrapped up in one document. It just has to be enough to get to the next step, getting through discovery, and eventually getting to the trial. So most of these motions to dismiss fail because when a lawsuit actually makes it to the court, there's usually enough merit to it. So right now we have everybody trying to get out of this lawsuit. But just because these get filed doesn't mean they're going to be granted. In fact, there's very little chance that any of these are going to be granted. The one with the best chances was New York Times, but I really feel like that memorandum that was filed is going to just kill that. I don't see how the judge can rule to dismiss their case. But all the rest of these people, fat chance. And this one, to me, this seems like, we know you're not going to grant this. We're putting it out there anyway, and we're gonna be just as nasty as we possibly can be. Like I said, Ryan's hand up the back of this guy, using him like a puppet to continue his nonsense schoolyard bully tactics and cruel mockery of Justin. He may as well have dressed Michael Gottlieb up like nice pool. It also shows something. This is not lawyering. This is a desperate attempt to make people hate Justin. This is oh no, the world doesn't like me anymore. Let me make them hate Justin more, because I certainly don't know how to make myself more likable, so the only thing I can do is try to make you hate Justin. He needs to sit back, let his PR people do their work, and let his lawyers do their work. But not to diagnose anybody with anything, and I'm not speaking of this as an official mental health diagnosis, but as the loose term that's used describing narcissists today. My original crew who followed me for Murdaugh stuff, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We watched Alex Murdaugh not be able to contain himself. We saw him go against his attorney's advice and take that stand, thinking that if he could just have a moment, if he could just have this opportunity, surely he could convince the world of his innocence. They never know when to stop talking. They never know when to say, this is more than I can handle. Sorry, they've been working outside, clearing trees and all kinds of things. There's going to be noise. I've put off recording as long as I can, but if I don't just go and plow through this, it's not going to get done. So sorry about the noise in the background. I will try my best to get it out in editing. But all this bullying and punkery makes the introduction so ironic, because right away they start in talking about this retaliatory social manipulation to destroy and bury Blake. Who bullied Blake? Who said anything about Blake that comes even close to the things that they say about Justin? Everything I have seen out there about Blake has been videos of her own voice, her own words coming out of her own mouth. No one is accusing her of criminal action. People are saying she's not a nice person, based on her not being a nice person multiple times, in multiple interviews, throughout multiple years. There is no hideous attack on her person, like this one that they've aimed at Justin. Not even close. The comments that led to this lawsuit, we've all looked at them. What were they? The clothes she chose were bad. They were. They were hideous. They looked like a homeless person who has to wear every item of clothing that they own so they don't lose them or so that they don't get stolen. They criticized her marketing because it was bad. They criticized her trying to sell Ryan's booze and her hair care line while promoting a movie about domestic violence. And while promoting that movie about domestic violence, not being willing to even say it, let alone offer any kind of phone number, website, organization, anywhere to direct people who might need it. This movie was all about making a choice to get away from your abuser. Wouldn't you think that an important part of putting this out there would be showing people how to do that in real life? But no, buy my shampoo and drink my booze and tell me how pretty I look in my floral dresses. That's what people said. None of that was a lie. None of it was accusing her of criminal acts. It was honest to goodness criticism for poor decisions. Have you met social media? But because suddenly people weren't just flocking around and liking and praising and adoring, they didn't know how to handle it. And look at what they've done now, because they couldn't handle it. And now we go on to the whole Ryan is innocent, where they say, what does Ryan have to do with any of this, legally speaking, other than being a supportive spouse who has witnessed firsthand the emotional, reputational, and financial devastation Miss Lively has suffered? Such a supporting spouse. You know, the way he stood up and joked about it on SNL. So supportive. The way he dressed himself up as a character pretending to be the person who caused this devastation. Repeated words that supposedly devastated her. That's how he supported his wife. I think he hates Justin because Justin knows how to embrace emotions. He knows how to express love and really be a supportive spouse. Things he's not capable of, and so he wants to put men down who are capable of it. But the answer to that, what does he have to do with it? Nothing. And they put it in bolds to make sure we didn't miss it. Mr. Reynolds is a defendant in this action for one reason and one reason only. Because billionaire plaintiff Steve Sarowitz promised to spend up to $100 million to ruin Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds. So that's the only reason that Ryan's in this lawsuit? Not because he took over the marketing? Not because he was there to demand that his writings, disguised as Blake's writings, got put in the movie? Was it actually him telling Justin how flirty and yummy he is and about his teeth? Never with teeth? Was that actually Ryan writing that too? Did he want Justin to think he was yummy and flirty and know that he wouldn't use his teeth on him? What else did he do? Tried to force him to sign documents to say he did something that he says he didn't do? Helped this whole scheme? Gave Blake editors and composers to completely take over his movie? Used his power and his standing to help her to do this because she could have never done this on her own.
Just did that for Blake Lively's film, It Ends With Us. No, she called me as we were in London finishing Deadpool, and, she's like, she called me out of the blue, and she's like, I've been hearing what you've been doing on Deadpool, and Ryan talks about you so much, and blah, 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 and she had kind of moved into the lead position of finishing this film, and so we came in and scored the film in 3 weeks from beginning to end.
The woman's not some high-level Hollywood actress. She's lost money on movies. The movies she's been in that actually make money, she's not the sole star of. There's always someone higher billed than her that have made those successful. But, he's only here because of Steve Sarowitz, so maybe we should just let him go. Then he says that he seeks to fulfill that promise by polluting this court's docket with hundreds of paragraphs of clickbait, designed for an audience other than this court with virtually no bearing on cognizable legal claims. Polluting the court's docket? Paragraphs of clickbait? Justin had to put that stuff out there. Blake had accused him, not just in court, but via the New York Times, had made these horrible accusations, had these altered texts, these texts of questionable origin. He put those paragraphs out there because he's fighting for his life. You accuse someone of stuff like this, you're ruining them. He had to put that stuff out there to show that the so-called proof of any of this was all fraudulent. Yes, it was long. It had to be. And then he says the fact that the Wayfarer parties have said that they put all the evidence before the court is a damning concession given the lack of any actual evidence supporting any legally cognizable claim against Mr. Reynolds. The evidence comes from discovery, Mr. Gottlieb. You know that. These are the claims filed in a complaint, and then there's discovery. That's where we get to the evidence. The stuff you're trying not to have to supply to Justin right now, Mr. Gottlieb. Then they try to accuse him of making redactions when they were the ones that did that in the first place. And then they try to humiliate him, talking about these large colored photographs, comparing Mr. Reynolds' long hairstyle in the movie with Mr. Baldoni's long hairstyle at some point in his real life. But the First Amendment complaint is a pleading, not a gossip rag, and these so-called receipts fail to establish the requisite elements of a single one of the many causes of action alleged against Mr. Reynolds. Ryan, you know Nice Pool's supposed to be Justin. We've been through this. It's not just the long hair. You made a whole character to your movie. You put in things that your wife accused him of saying. You built an entire flower shop on your set to kill him in front of. And now you're trying to make him look foolish? For referring to it? No, sir. You're the one looking foolish for going through all that trouble in the first place. And then this gossip rag, when this whole entire document is aimed at the public, not the court. He says these 6 causes of action that are brought up against Ryan fail to establish a prima facie case as a matter of law. We've defined this before, but let's go ahead and do it again. It's a Latin term that means at first sight or the face of it. By legal definition, this means that it's a sufficient enough claim to establish presumption of guilt. And once it's put out there, then it has to be rebutted by the other side. So basically it's saying, at first glance, it looks like you've got a good case. Now let's let the other side try to deny it. He's saying, you don't have that, which we all know is not true. And then he makes a statement that he's going to run with over and over again for the rest of the document. That's so untrue. He says without pleading a single complete statement or identifying the time or place of such statement, nor can they because no such defamatory statement exists. And then he goes on to discuss what was actually said after saying it doesn't exist. But okay, Mr. Gottlieb, He says the defamation claim appears to be based on 2 times that Mr. Reynolds allegedly called Mr. Baldoni a predator. So that's the defense. First he says it doesn't exist, and then he says, well, okay, but only 2 times. I only said it 2 times. But they can't stick with one defense. First they say it wasn't said. Then they say, I only said it 2 times. Now they're about to say, but it was true. Then they're going to say, oh, it wasn't a statement of fact. It was an opinion. It was hyperbole. Just like Leslie and just like the New York Times. These statements cannot be both true and opinion hyperbole. But they've all taken both of these, saying, oh, it was just an opinion. And if you don't believe me that it wasn't an opinion, okay, but fine then. It was true. So I'm still covered. It's the worst. It's just the worst. And so they get right to that. The First Amendment complaint alleges no plausible facts that suggest Mr. Reynolds did not believe this comment to be true. Instead, the relevant First Amendment complaint allegation suggests that Mr. Reynolds genuinely, perhaps passionately believes that Mr. Baldoni's behavior is reflective of a predator. If only there was something he could have done at the time with all of these genuine, passionate beliefs when his vulnerable, postpartum wife was being traumatized. Oh, look what I found. Again, all I needed was Google. I'm not part of the SAG-AFTRA union, but guess what? Their information is so easy to access. There it is on the screen. All you have to type is a couple little strokes. Write this down, Ryan. S-A-G. And then sexual harassment. You can even misspell it. Google will help spell it correctly for you. It's that easy. If you genuinely, passionately believe that your wife is being sexually harassed, there are so many things you can do. Correct things to do to handle it. But you didn't do any of those. You made a character in your movie, repeated the words that supposedly traumatized her. That's how genuinely and passionately you believed her. And you're still joking about it, with all these genuine, passionate feelings and beliefs. But I printed all these out. I took a long look. There is so much here that could have helped you in the moment if your wife was genuinely being harassed. You know what else is in here? Lots of information about intimacy coordinators. You know what one of the things they emphasize is? Putting an end to high-risk locations for professional meetings. They shouldn't take place in hotel rooms or private residences. Oh look, this is in bold too. Stop holding professional meetings in these high-risk locations and find alternative, appropriate locations for professional meetings. Stop agreeing to professional meetings in these high-risk locations. What was your wife doing, Ryan, with this man that genuinely creeped her out so bad? How many times did she call him to your home? You know, a high-risk location that SAG-AFTRA says don't do, stop doing, or in your words, no more. But look at all these numbers and websites. They've got a whole handy little timeline to show how they've improved the means in which to report these things, to stop these things from happening. If you don't know how to report, they have pages and pages to tell you how. You know what else they have? They have advice on what you're supposed to do when you see someone being harassed. Leslie Sloan claims she didn't even know the harassment was happening until long after. So Blake didn't even bother to tell her agent this was happening when it was supposedly happening. What were you supposed to do when you found out about it? You're part of this union, right? Aren't you supposed to follow the rules? You didn't do any of this. And you know, this part about the intimacy coordinator, this was really interesting to me. Because most of us had never heard of an intimacy coordinator. And it was so funny to me how Team Blake all of a sudden were just absolute experts on intimacy coordinators. All of a sudden they knew everything about the role of one. Oh, he added an extra kiss that wasn't in the script. You know, in scenes like the dance, that's not even something an intimacy coordinator does. You know what they're there for? They're there for nudity, simulated sex, and other intimate and hyper-exposed scenes. These people were dressed. There was no sex. And they're also saying, oh, it had to be written in the script. You know that directors change scenes all the time. There's a script. Sometimes the actors go off script and ad-lib. You know, like the time Ryan smacked that kid in the face. And then later said the kid looked at him like he won the lottery because he got smacked by Ryan Reynolds, because, you know, that's equal to winning the lottery, being slapped by Ryan Reynolds. But here was Blake going off script all the time, changing things up. But a director will say, hey, let's try it this way, let's try it that way. He can add kisses to a scene. Because here's the script. It's on paper. Then you start acting it out. And all of a sudden, in real life, it doesn't appear as nicely as you imagined it from the paper script. So the director has a right to sit there and say, oh, more passion, oh, more kisses. And everybody's sitting around like they're some kind of expert on intimacy coordination and movie sets. Do you know what this says? Even if the director wants to add sex scenes, he has to give the actors 48-hour notice. That's it. He can even add sex scenes as long as there's 48 hours notice given. And as long as he follows the nudity riders. You know, that pesky little thing that Blake couldn't be bothered to sign, to put her notes to, when she couldn't meet with the intimacy coordinator. But I'm sorry, all of you out there who think that a movie set is like an accounting office, where if someone walked up and kissed you, it would be bad. These actors sign up to do simulated sex scenes. They know when they read the script and when they sign up that they're going to have to do these things. This movie was no exception. It didn't mean Justin was trying to get with her, trying to get his hands on her or try to peek at her boobs. They offered her a body double for the simulated sex scenes. Even after she accused him of harassment, she turned it down. It's all here on the SAG-AFTRA website. Go take a look. What does an intimacy coordinator do? They're an advocate, a liaison between actors and production, and a movement coach and or choreographer in regards to nudity and simulated sex and other intimate and hyper-exposed scenes. They ensure that performers and other production personnel adhere to proper safety protocols. They serve as a resource in realizing who's a director's vision. They're there to enhance believability. They strive to build an environment in which actors understand what is expected of them in hyper-exposed scenes and to give their informed and continued consent. Not a dance scene where the director's trying to direct and the actor is trying to also direct. Now let's get back to his mocking Justin some more. The law establishes that calling someone a predator amounts to constitutionally protected opinion. I am constitutionally protected to call you a sex predator, basically, is what he's saying here. Then he calls it thin-skinned outrage over a movie character, the satirical woke nice pool. Ryan, you made a whole character. You named him Gordon Reynolds. Your wife thanked him on her It Ends With Us credits. You created a flower shop backdrop to murder him from. How much did that cost you? Calling someone a sexual predator destroys their life and career. And you're gonna say thin-skinned outrage? And say it's just hurt feelings? And then in the same breath, mention a retaliation campaign launched against Blake? Some people said her clothes were ugly and her marketing was bad. How does that compare with what you did, Ryan? And you know, if they had just given it some time, that little criticism would have died down. The movie would have been a success. People would have gone on with their lives. But they couldn't take that criticism, and she couldn't accept the fact that people don't want to buy her booze and don't want to buy her hair care line. I'm sorry, is she a chemist that we don't know about? Does she know how to mix shampoo and conditioner? Or does she hire somebody to do it and slap her name on it and mark the price up? Come on. Why are we going to buy shampoo from Blake Lively? But she couldn't accept the failure, and so she had to blame Justin. And that's what this is about. This retaliatory smear campaign amounted to a little criticism. Well-deserved criticism, and people not wanting to buy her product. How shocking it must be to find out you're not the goddess you thought you were. The people don't mind liking your posts, but they don't want to go out there and spend too much money on shampoo with your name on it, knowing you don't know how to make shampoo. And you got big mad, and you're the one with hurt feelings. And instead of facing the reality that you're not who you thought you were to people, it's got to be Justin's fault. And when he dared react to it, what a thin-skinned, weak man. Oh, we hurt his feelings. Then they have the nerve to say Ryan extorted them but failed to allege that he received any money or property. That comes from the discovery. Did Ryan take over the marketing of that movie? They claim he interfered with a contract without identifying what that contract is, what provisions were actually breached, or even which of them were parties to it. Why do these people not understand that they're being accused of being part of a conspiracy, of a collusion, that they all worked together and that it's going to take some time to work out how that entire conspiracy went down. We don't know at this point who did exactly what. We just know these were the people involved. That's what the case is for, to sort all of that out. That's why they're asking you for discovery, to sort all that out now. All they have to prove right now is that there's enough of a case to proceed to that. And it's funny you mentioned there not being a contract, Mr. I'm going to write this rooftop scene and pretend it was my wife and pretend that I'm supporting her and that I'm her dragon, making sure that it gets put in the movie. You want to talk about a contract when your wife hadn't even signed a contract at that point and you weren't ever going to be given a contract. And here you are writing for this movie. The lack of self-awareness of this man needs to be studied. Then he says there's this amount of $400 million in damages without explaining anything about who suffered that loss. Where is his business at this moment? His reputation? His net worth? He had an up-and-coming production company. He had so many things in the works. $400 million probably doesn't even begin to cover the losses. And then this part just burns me so bad. Here's more mocking of Justin by taking words from his books and his podcasts. He says that the First Amendment complaint is long on hyperbole, prose, and claims, but devoid of any facts necessary to state ones recognized by law. It is, in essence, a burn book filled with grievances attempting to shame Mr. Reynolds. Get this. Put your waders on, it's getting deep. For being the kind of man who is confident enough to listen to the woman in his life and to hold her anguish and actually stand with her. And then puts a little footnote. Those words were actually spoken by Justin during his TED Talk, which you really should listen to. They are taking his words so out of context and turning them around on him. I mean, you know what this is going to do? This is going to send people to read these books and to listen to these TED Talks and podcasts. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to like Justin even more. These are words Justin said because he actually applies these in his life. Now they're trying to say this is what Ryan does, that he is actually the kind of man to stand with the woman in his life and hold her anguish. Again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but what he did at SNL, was he standing by his wife? Because to me, she looked mortified that he said what he said. Was he holding her anguish, or was he joking about it? Was he holding her anguish and standing by her when he dressed up, when he did what he could to try to make himself look like her supposed harasser, and repeated the words that gave her this anguish? Do these people ever stop and think before they run their mouths? That's what I want to know. Do they put this stuff out there with no hesitation about whether or not it's a good idea to say these things? You know, legal documents aren't just written up one and done. They're read and reread and checked, approved by the client a lot of times. And this is the final copy? This isn't the first draft that the lawyer comes back through and says, hey, this isn't a good idea to say this. This is the let's put this out there for the world to see final copy. File this with the court. I mean, look at the mess you made, Ryan. You made everything worse. You did not stand by and hold your wife's anguish. If you were a good and loving husband and truly believed your wife was being sexually harassed, you wouldn't have resorted to all this schoolyard bully nonsense. You would have gone to SAG. You would have found this information I found, and you would have supported her. But that's not what you did. Instead of handling it like a good, supportive husband, you acted like a jealous, spiteful child, Ryan. And by using his words to mock him, you still seem like you're seething with jealousy of Justin, Ryan. Combing through every word he's written and every word he's spoken to turn around and mock him with it. It's childish, Ryan. And it's vile, because we know what you're really like. We saw you describing so much worse conduct than anything Blake has accused Justin and Jamie of doing. You actually said that all the people in the room that you exposed Olivia Wilde's breasts to won the lottery.
Like those pasties on.
Right.
But she's drawing these adorable little smiley faces on me. And I forget every line in the scene. Not just from this movie, from every other movie I've done. And I don't really know I'm sort of going up, I'm nervous, I'm blithering on about nothing. And at some point in the scene, she takes my hands and puts them on her breasts. Mm-hmm. So they're there, palms are a little sweaty, don't know what's happening. And then at the end of the scene, I'm supposed to take them, and I'm trying not to look at her like a 14-year-old boy who just won the lady lottery.
Right.
And
won the lady lottery. Is that what it's called? The lady lottery.
And I'm trying not to do it. And I take, at some point in the scene, I have to take my hands away. And I take my hands away, and I look down at my hands, and there's 2 freaking smiley faces on them. And I have no idea what to do. So, the scene is over now. There's 65 crew members around. I mean, there's all these guys. There's like won the jackpot. I'm sitting there, and I reflexively, like an idiot, just put my hands right back on her breasts. And I think I'm doing it to cover them up, but I'm like realizing right now it's a very fine line between chivalry and, workplace sexual assault.
Blake's up in arms because she thinks somebody tried to look at her breasts while she was breastfeeding. You literally put your hands on this woman's breasts. And then you did a whole interview circuit retelling the story, sharing her humiliation over and over again, every time saying that all the people who you exposed her breasts to won the lottery because they got to see her breasts. You're disgusting, Ryan. And since you don't seem to know the difference, I'm stating that as opinion, though I'm sure many will take it as fact. And that's okay. But that's disgusting. She should have had you in a lawsuit. And then we see more of his petty jealousy when he tries to reduce all of these claims against him as hurt feelings. But what none of these people seem to be able to grasp is what a conspiracy or collusion actually means. They're saying you all acted in on this together, and yet every single one of them is like, you're not making it clear what each of us are being accused of. No one knows yet. How many times do you have to be told that? They're saying we don't know what each person's role was. That's what discovery's for. We just know there was a collusion, a conspiracy that you were all in on. But in each one of these motions to dismiss, they all keep repeating that. They're saying again, only a few isolated acts by Mr. Reynolds were alleged. Were you involved at all? Then you take part in the entire conspiracy. If a group of people come together and rob a bank, they each have their little part. Maybe someone was just the driver. Maybe someone just cracked the safe and didn't actually physically take the money out. It doesn't matter. It was a group effort where everybody came together and did their little part. So saying, oh, I only said it twice, or there's only a few isolated acts that Ryan was involved in, that's ridiculous. And let's not forget, Blake could not have done this without Ryan. None of this. She doesn't have the power. She's not some A-list actress out there. We looked through her IMDb last episode. She gets grouped in because of her husband and her friend Taylor Swift. She's not a powerful person by herself. By her own admission, she needs her dragons to help her do something. And now we get back to the word only. Only 2 allegations even generously match the description. And so here he goes again. I only said it twice. And he points to 2 different things that are in the complaint. One they call the agent statement, where Ryan said it to Justin's agent, and the executive statement, where he said it to WME. But notice in their own writings here, they say during the premiere of his movie Deadpool and Wolverine. And yet they keep saying, you didn't name a time and a place. It's right there, isn't it? We have the who. Who did he say it to? An executive at WME. We have the what. He called him a sexual predator. We have the when at the Deadpool and Wolverine premiere, which is also the where. It's all here. But in the rest of the document, they forget about this sentence and keep saying, oh, well, you didn't expressly say exactly what he did or when or where. It's right here. And what came out of that? He wasn't able to do it the first time, but after he talked to the executive, he sure did. And what happened? They dropped Justin. That is a huge consequence for an accusation. Justin hasn't been convicted of anything. You can't just accuse someone of criminal acts when they've not been convicted. And this had very real consequences for Justin. This is huge. And they're saying, well, I only called him that twice. He doesn't have any damages to show you. It's crazy. These are career and reputation-ending accusations. And now he goes through the list of accusations made after saying there were only a couple. The way he words this makes it sound so different than the reality of it all. Number 1, that Ryan demanded for Justin to publicly apologize for so-called mistakes during production of the film. Now, if we look back at this paragraph that he's talking about, this was after Blake got her public backlash, and Ryan drafts this public apology that he wants them to sign for these so-called mistakes during production, or the gloves would come off. And what does he say in here? Admitting to false, vague, and unspecified mistakes would be tantamount to admitting to career-ending misconduct. If they had put out this apology without specifically saying what it was supposed to be for, Blake and Ryan could have and would have said some crazy things and applied that apology to it. No one's going to willingly put out an apology like this. They had already drafted that whole no more, no more, no more list of things, which, by the way, is really incredibly tacky because the organization that Justin had chosen as the charity to give money to from the movie was called nomore.org, and it was specific for battered women. Not only did Blake not address domestic violence or send anyone to any kind of help, promote any kind of charity, but she actually took the name of the charity that Justin appointed and turned it around into such a vile document. Don't tell me that's coincidental. There's no way that's coincidental. But at this point, that wasn't signed. They knew better than to ask Justin and Jamie to sign that. That was just a list of accusations that she verbally hurled out at them. People mistakenly think that that's the 17-point thing that they signed, admitting to having done those things. That's not the truth. But you better believe if they had signed this apology, that document would have come out and they would have said this is what they're apologizing for. I don't have a doubt. This is not some tiny little thing like he's trying to make it. This is huge. They also point to paragraph 250. It says, on August 12, 2024, Heath and Abel had a call with two executives from their then talent agency. One admitted that the root of Lively's problems was focusing the promotion of the film on frivolities, like fabulous premiere dresses, Hollywood glamour, and the commercial benefits for Lively's brands, while Baldoni had always maintained his public focus on amplifying the voices of domestic violence survivors. The executive communicated the demand from Lively and Reynolds that Wayfarer, Heath, and Baldoni make a public apology that day, and that if they failed to do so, the gloves would come off. Stunningly, the executive even told Heath and Abel that Lively and Reynolds objected when Baldoni spoke kindly of Lively in public, claiming that it misrepresented their relationship. These are executives from that talent agency. Even they admitted what these problems were from. They were from Blake's promotion of this film. But still, Blake and Ryan wanted to throw them under the bus. And there was the threat. If you don't, the gloves will come off. And here we have the gloves coming off. Don't even speak kindly. People might think you're nice and we're mean. Stop looking better than us. And I remind you that at the end of the first half of the filming, before the strike, all was well. All the communication was good. That phone call, she texted him thanking him for it. She was buying him his favorite drink. During that break, when he said no about the dailies, that's when everything went nuts. This 17-point thing was signed for her to come back. When she finally came back, she admits there were no other incidents for the duration of the rest of the filming. She filmed sex scenes with him, forgoing the use of a body double. And then all of a sudden with marketing, she can't be next to him. And he's not allowed to speak nicely to her. And he needs to issue an apology, to blame everything on him. Can you imagine? If he had issued this apology, wouldn't we have been like, what does Justin apologizing about production have to do with your bad marketing? How does that fix your bad marketing? How does that fix you self-promoting? It doesn't. Where does their logic and reasoning come from? It makes no sense. Then they downplay number 2. He was present during a meeting at the apartment that he shares with Miss Lively, at which he praised Miss Lively's version of a scene in Mr. Baldoni's presence. Ryan, did you forget you wrote that scene? Did you forget you were praising yourself and your own writing, and hoping Justin was going to put your writing in his movie, pretending it was your wife? Did you call Taylor over? Oh, Taylor, can you tell him to promote this? Oh, Taylor, can you tell him to put my writing in his movie and say it was Blake? You should be too embarrassed of this to even put it in this document. Get some self-awareness, Ryan. Number 3. Allegedly contributed some writing of his own to the script. Are you serious, Ryan? Allegedly? Can we listen to your wife for a minute here?
Good, especially that rooftop scene that you first appear on. I saw in another interview you said that Ryan, actually, your husband Ryan Reynolds, wrote part of that rooftop scene. Is that true?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I would have to compare it to the original one, but that's 90-something, 99% his. Yeah, he
So what exactly are you all saying here? First, Blake says she wrote it. You say she wrote it to Justin. You guys get Taylor Swift to say she wrote it and enthuse about it to Justin. He had taken a pass on it at first. Then after the pressure from the dragons, he puts it in. And by the way, it's a crappy scene. She's dressed like a garage mechanic. And there's nothing about her in that scene that's going to make this guy fall so hard for her. It's such a stupid, weird scene. I wish so bad we could see the original. And then all of a sudden, the movie comes out and Blake's running around in all her interviews telling everyone you wrote it. So who's lying? And why? You guys need to get together and decide which lie you're going to tell. You can't be running around telling all these different versions of something. And back to the script. Did you guys know that not only did he try to get that script written as faithfully to the book as he possibly could, collaborated with Colleen, actually read the book in the first place, and the two of them hosted an event where they had actual victims come together and get to do the first reading of the script and offer suggestions from their own personal experience to make sure that that script was authentic?
So what are you doing?
We are reading the script for It Is With Us. And I might be sniffling a little bit.
Who's all here? Are there a bunch of fans here?
So many.
Enjoy, guys, enjoy.
You were picked from thousands, and you were picked because of your reasons why.
Don't be shy. Even mine, when I read the book, made me cry. Yeah.
What can we do now to make this the best book to movie adaptation we've ever seen? You are now the only fans in the world who have read the script. So
It translates to the movie really well. I translate to the movie.
So now I think we should make a movie.
Let's make a movie.
Make a movie.
I got goosebumps the first time I heard that, and I've got them again while I relay this to you. Imagine that. The care that he took to be sure that this script was authentic to people who have suffered this situation. That's the measures that this man took to make sure that it was true to Colleen's words and true to actual victims of domestic violence. There were years of careful consideration that went into this script. This script that Blake arrives on the scene having never read the book herself, and she just takes it all, tears it up, throws it away, and replaces it with her own and with her husband's writing. Shame on you. Really, really and truly, shame on you. That you thought that your nonsense was better than this carefully crafted script with the tears of people who've actually lived this. And you wanted to promote it like some silly, frivolous, flowery rom-com and promote your booze and your shampoo. Shame on you, really, Blake and Ryan. Ryan, with your weird everybody's in love with Brandon thing. You know, the man that was actually filmed rubbing your wife's back. What was going on there? I never saw Justin put his hands on your wife like that. This certainly wasn't in a script. This was them sitting cozy watching the movie together. Is he going to be in your next movie, Ryan? Allegedly contributed some writing. Number 4. He admonished Mr. Baldoni for asking about Miss Lively's weight and demanded that a scene be removed from the film. It wasn't admonishing. It was a vicious, swearing attack. Very unprofessional. Very uncalled for. There was a reason he asked the weight, for his own safety and for your wife's safety, Ryan. We saw him in the hospital because of an infection in his back right after filming finished. We know he has a bad back. He was in the hospital for an extended period of time and on a very long treatment plan after. Your wife's not a tiny woman. He needed to be sure he could lift her. He needed to get ready to lift her. He was working with body doubles to make sure that he could lift her. He needed to know how much weight he had to lift. He wasn't asking her bra size. If he hadn't prepared for it, he could have hurt himself. He could have dropped her. And you guys lied, saying that there was no such scene in the movie. But look at you now. Demanded that a scene be removed from the film. Did you forget that in your wife's complaint, she said the scene didn't exist? You guys need to get together and get your lies straight because you're falling all over the place here. You got 2 separate stories going on. She already said that scene didn't exist. And this document that you say is so long on hyperbole, prose, and claims, that's why it's so long. Because of all the lies you guys have told that they've had to set straight. But thanks for clearing it up, that that scene did exist and that you demanded it be removed. Because you had no right to make any demands about this movie, did you? You shouldn't even have been there, let alone telling the director what to do. But thanks for all these admissions. We're seeing a lot more clearly now, thanks to you. Attended a meeting with Miss Lively to address her allegations of sexual harassment on set and demanded that Mr. Baldoni apologize for his conduct. Now, you demanded this whole meeting take place. If you wanted this done right, it shouldn't have been in your apartment. Where was your union rep? This was a scream session that you didn't want officials to see. You wanted just enough to be able to use it as leverage to do exactly what you're being accused of here, extortion to take over this film. 6. Unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media. Let's talk about the timing of that, Ryan. When did you unfollow him? Are you trying to tell us that months and months, the year before, you genuinely and passionately believe that this man sexually harassed your wife, and you continue to follow him on social media until marketing? Until people started saying bad stuff about Blake? That's when you chose to unfollow him? And you want to pretend that wasn't a piece of this? That wasn't a breadcrumb? Included the nice pool character in Deadpool and Wolverine that the First Amendment complaint alleges was meant to satirize Mr. Baldoni's person as a woke feminist. Are you trying to deny this? Please do. Please try to deny this. Mr. Principles, Mr. Standing by my wife and holding her anguish, why didn't you unfollow him immediately? Why did you wait for a strategic moment, Ryan? Then we get to the legal standard. Now remember what I said in the beginning about the cooking show. You can only use the ingredients that you've been given to make this dish. And what does that have to do with this document? This motion to dismiss cannot add other ingredients than what were on the complaint. None of this, Justin's TED Talk, his books, his podcast, these quotations, none of this was in that complaint. If they were standing before the court trying to bring this into a hearing, the judge would tell them they couldn't speak it. This is not allowed. These lawyers know this, and they're doing it anyway, and then accusing Justin of writing legal documents for the public. This entire thing is just a means to get more dirt out on Justin right now. But did it work? Ryan, Blake, and because of them, Colleen, Taylor Swift, and Hugh Jackman have all been bleeding followers. Hundreds of thousands a month, fleeing their Instagram. Justin, meanwhile, has been gaining. Let's take a look at what happened after he filed this motion to dismiss. Did it work, or did people see through it? Ryan took a hit. You see the 18th? That's when it was released. Blake took a hit. Taylor took a hit. Colleen took a hit. Hugh Jackman took a hit. These were huge. Look at these numbers. Justin took a few. I mean, he's been on the gain this whole time. But how's this working for you, Ryan? And all these people you guys are bringing down with you. Is it worth it? So he says a complaint must offer more than labels and conclusions or formulaic recitation of the elements of the cause of action or naked assertions devoid of further factual enhancement in order to survive dismissal. Calling someone a sexual predator, even if you only did it twice, to the point that they get dropped by their agency, more than meets this criteria. I only said it twice is no defense here. And now we get into the argument portion. He's claiming that it fails under both New York and California law. They all want this New York law. And he goes into a long, drawn-out explanation of why New York law applies. But what they all just ignore is that defamation is different than all other torts. This isn't a contract that was signed in a specific state. This isn't an accident that happened in a specific state. This is defamation. It's about where the victim lives and works. That's where defamation is most keenly felt. That's where his company is suffering. That's where he is suffering. That's where he needs his reputation restored. It's very basic law. And repeating over and over again that it falls under New York law doesn't make it so. The plaintiff is the one who gets the say in this. It doesn't matter that the conduct occurred in New York. It doesn't matter where Ryan's residence is. He says there was never a contractual relationship with Wayfarer parties. No, you weren't under contract, and yet you wrote for it. You supplied your editors and your music people to your wife so she could make her own cut of Wayfarer's movie. You do realize you also helped her extort them to do this, according to these claims. Then he comes back to saying that the complaint fails to state a claim for defamation. After admitting he said it twice and when and where he said it, now all of a sudden, it doesn't identify a single allegedly defamatory statement published by Mr. Reynolds. Did you take a break in the writing and come back and forget everything that you already wrote? Did you forget you already talked about what you said? And said, well, I only said it twice, and I genuinely believed it. Now he didn't say anything. And then he goes on to say that calling someone a predator is not defamatory. Because for it to be slander, a plaintiff must plead 1, a defamatory statement. Well, calling someone a sex predator, that is in fact defamatory. 2, that it's false. He denies this. 3, published to a third party. You've mentioned twice. One to an agent of WME, the second to an executive of WME. That's 2 third parties. 4, of and concerning the plaintiff. That's exactly who you talked about. 5, made with the applicable level of fault on the part of the speaker. 7, either causing special harm or constituting slander per se. He lost his agent over it, and his business is in shambles over it. I think that qualifies. And 7, not protected by privilege. You're not the New York Times, Ryan. What privilege do you think you have to accuse someone of a criminal act and bring the consequences that you've brought to him? What privilege do you fall under for that? And then after listing all of those things that are in fact true, he says that it fails under all of these. Then he says he doesn't include allegations that are specific enough to afford Ryan sufficient notice of the communications complained of to enable him to defend himself. So he's like, I can't defend myself. I don't even know what I did wrong. Turn back a few pages. Ryan, are you really on ayahuasca? Is that what's happening here? Or what did you say in your weird little promotion? That you were on meth? You had your mom saying you were on meth? Was there truth in that? Like, what's going on here? Then they say again that a defamation claim is only sufficient if it adequately identifies the purported communications and an indication of who made the communication, when it was made, and to whom it was communicated. I might need to make him a PowerPoint. Who made it? You made it. When was it made? At the Deadpool and Wolverine premiere. And to whom was it communicated? To an agent of WME and then an executive of WME. Can we move on now? Or are you going to forget when I turn the page? Then again, speaking of New York law, he talks about the essential elements of a defamation claim, whether the statement was false, whether it was capable of defamatory meaning. I don't think that's a question. Saying someone is a sex predator is capable of a defamatory meaning. It got him dropped from his agency. What is so hard to understand about that? If it's so bad you get dropped from your agency, obviously it's defamatory. And whether it was of and concerning the plaintiff, who else was it about? Did anybody else get dropped? Then he says that the First Amendment complaint fails to sufficiently plead the substance of the predator statements. What kind of delusional pills are you taking, Ryan? Seriously. It doesn't plead what Mr. Reynolds said when he said it, or any of the context surrounding the conversation during which he purportedly uttered the agent's statement. The Deadpool premiere, July 26, 2024, to the executive that a few pages ago you said you were talking to about what Justin allegedly did to your wife. The absence of these details makes it impossible, for example, to determine whether this statement falls within the applicable 1-year statute of limitations. July 26th. Ryan, let me help you out. It's March. It won't be a year until it's July again. Then he calls these bare bones pleadings again. And notice, other than that first little sentence that hinted at it, in all of this, he never actually comes out and says, I didn't call him a sexual predator. He never denies it. He just dances around it like this. Well, when did I say it? Who did I say it to? Where did I say it? How exactly did I say it? You know you said it. And you know when you said it, and you know who you said it to, and you know what the result of you saying it was. When I first read it, I get so mad, and then I'm just like laughing at it because it's so ridiculous. Point 2 is the predatory statements are not defamatory because they are constitutionally protected opinion. It is my constitutional right to accuse you of criminal acts. And these people need a class on what opinions are. Courts must distinguish between statements of fact, which may be defamatory, and expressions of opinion, which are not defamatory. Opinions have no precise meaning, are not capable of being objectively characterized as true or false, and are merely a general reflection of the speaker's viewpoint. Are you serious? No precise meaning when someone tells you that someone is a sex predator, and that they sexually harassed your wife. Do you have any doubt what they mean? Not capable of being characterized as true or false? You either are or you aren't a sexual predator. This is crazy. And he didn't say, oh, he looks like one. He said he is one and that he harassed his wife. And then he goes on to say that these words, these are just vague, imprecise statements of hyperbole, considered non-actionable opinion. And yet they cost him his career. And he keeps listing predator, just predator, by itself. When you call someone a sexual predator, it's not the same thing. It's very specific. It defines the word. And yeah, that's not the same thing as calling someone an animal or evil or shameless. A sexual predator is a very specific thing. And here he goes again with his hurt feelings. You know, just come right out and call him a sissy, Ryan, because that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're that mean, bitter little boy in school who hates himself and projects it onto other people, who has his idea of what he thinks masculine is and cuts other boys down when they don't meet it. This is exactly who you are, in my opinion, Ryan. So he's saying in the gentle way he said these things, they're not actionable under New York law. You were not calling him names. You were accusing him of criminal behavior. You were doing so in a professional landscape, knowing it would cause reputational and financial harm. But here we go again. Same with Leslie, same with New York Times. Well, if you don't consider it an opinion, then let's say it's true then. Yeah, it's true. It can't be both. But here we are. So they're saying it's not actionable as defamation because it's true. And let's spend a few paragraphs calling him that again. And here we go outside that box again. Here he is naming Mr. Baldoni's books. Boys Will Be Human, and the other one, Man Enough. And he devotes a good long time to this information that he well knows is outside of this box. He can't be cooking with this. He has to stick to the complaint. He's not even pretending to stay in the lines of this box. He's just blowing this box right up. And it's all an attempt to try to make Justin look bad, to twist his words, probably hoping that no one actually goes and looks these things up to see what Justin actually said. But please, if you have any questions in your mind, go listen to his podcasts, listen to his TED Talk, look at his books. These things that they're trying to say that Justin says in these things, they're not so. Don't take this man's word for it. Go look it up for yourself. He takes things that Justin said about himself when he was in his teens and 20s. Ryan says it includes numerous admissions to behavior that could reasonably be described as predatory. He quotes him saying, "I'm sure I've crossed boundaries and lines in my teens and 20s, not even thinking about it, simply because of the porn I was consuming." He's trying to make it sound like Justin's out there just assaulting women. How old is Justin now? He's speaking regrettably about his mindset and his actions in his teens and early 20s. Is he promoting porn? Is he bragging? No. He's trying to speak in the wisdom of an older man who's learned life lessons along the way, trying to offer that wisdom to other young men. He's not saying that's who he is now. He's not glorifying it. He's ashamed of it. He's sharing this shameful bit of his past to help other people. Do we remember the Olivia Wilde clip about Ryan? Was Ryan in his teens or 20s when that happened? Could it be that Ryan's the one that sees this as something filthy, that he can't comprehend? A man, a grown man, recognizing that this teen and 20s behavior, where you think that exposing a woman's breasts to a room full of people is making them feel like they've won the lottery. Maybe, just maybe, the damage is in Ryan's mind so that he can't see what Justin's actually saying here. And we're adults here, and we're going to have this conversation in just a moment. But first, we're going to go through this footnote. He goes through these things that are supposed to be gotcha moments where he's getting Justin. He refers to paragraph 38. Let's see if what Ryan is saying here is true. It says he relays the distributor's concerns and the widespread social media criticism about Miss Lively's appearance. Let's see what really happened. In reality, Baldoni, the film's director, was relaying the distributor's concerns, and remember, this was Sony, and there's proof of this, and the widespread social media criticism regarding the wardrobe's failure to meet audience expectations, a sentiment Baldoni shared. This incident is just one of the many examples of Lively's troubling pattern of manipulation and lies. Do you guys remember what happened here? They were filming these scenes outside. People were out there taking videos of it, taking pictures of it. They saw her in these hideous clothes, and it spread like wildfire, and it got back to Sony. And Sony contacts Justin, and they're like, "Justin, what are you doing over there? These clothes are getting criticized." They were worried that it was going to affect the film's reception. That's how bad she looked. Guess what? Sony's like, "Justin, you're the director. She's your actress. Take care of this." And so Justin had to go take care of it. We talked about this a long time ago. Now, according to Ryan's little sentence here, it was about Miss Lively's appearance. It was actually about the clothes. And the clothes are hideous. And it was Sony that was upset about it. He didn't say anything about Blake's appearance. People thought she looked ridiculous. People were waiting for this movie. Do you remember how famous this book was? I showed it in the last episode. Hugely famous. People were waiting for this book. And then they see that. They already have in their mind what they think Lily's going to look like. And then they see that. And they criticized it. And you know what? This is long before anything bad happened between them. She was being criticized back then. Doesn't that tell you something? This is when they were on good terms. Long before any alleged smear campaign. And people were saying she looks terrible. Doesn't that register something to you? That none of this criticism was from Justin? This was people going, wow, that looks terrible. This isn't our Lily. This isn't what we pictured. She looks homeless. She looks like a hobo. The book was supposed to be a 23-year-old young woman. People pictured her in cute little sundresses or something. Not in hobo clothes. That's not Justin's fault. And nobody was talking about Blake's body. They were talking about the clothes. Then he brings up number 88. He says that Justin admitted to suggesting Miss Lively's character orgasm during the scene. Let's look at 88. During a creative meeting, which Lively requested to take place in her home, Baldoni read to her his notes from the intimacy coordinator, including a suggestion that Blake's character orgasm during the scene, similar to the book. If she'd read the book, she wouldn't have been so surprised by this. It's a movie that has sex scenes. Don't be surprised when features of sex are in it. But what does he say happened? Lively remarked, "Oh no, I'm too old for that," and Baldoni offered another suggestion instead, also from his notes from the meeting with the intimacy coordinator that she wouldn't meet with. Baldoni then moved on. He didn't just keep saying, "I'm the director, you have to do this." Even though it was in the book, it was in the script, it was in the intimacy coordinator's notes. You don't feel comfortable doing it? Fine, you don't have to do it. This is a misrepresentation of what happened. Number 94, admitting to telling Miss Lively that the onesie she was wearing underneath her jacket was sexy. Did he say, "Blake, you're sexy"? Or did he say the onesie was sexy? 94, when Baldoni and Wayfair clearly agreed that coworkers should respect physical space, Lively's constant confusion of references to her character, as played by Lively as opposed to Lively herself, became problematic and interfered with production. She lost her identity. She couldn't remember if it was herself or Lily. This was caused in large part by Lively's persistent desire to direct and inability to accept direction. We've seen clip after clip of this. When she was supposed to be there, showing up like all the other actors, saying her lines, taking direction, she was too busy trying to tell everyone else what to do. For example, her allegation that Baldoni inappropriately called her sexy was in fact referenced to a scene where everyone was wearing onesies, but Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. Baldoni, her director, asked that she take off the big coat so that her onesie would be visible in the scene. Baldoni said it will be hot, as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Not, "You're so hot, Blake. You're already wearing a onesie, then you got a big coat over it. There's no air conditioning, it's 90 degrees, you're gonna be hot." Lively mischaracterized this in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her personally as hot, using the slang meaning of the term. Given that Lively herself had earlier expressed to him that she wanted her character's wardrobe to be sexier, and yes, we've seen the texts, Baldoni encouraged her to accept direction by saying it's sexy, meaning that without the big coat, the wardrobe was sexier. Not you, Blake. The wardrobe. You talked about your beanie being sexy. This is the same thing. Lively took this personally. She was unable to take the direction, stating, "That's not what I'm going for." Baldoni, recognizing that she may have taken his direction personally and appeared offended, apologized more than once. And guess what? He has the film footage to prove it. And then this comes back, 119, admitting to casting his friend as the obstetrician in the birth scene, where he would be in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia. All right. We've been through this over and over again. She was not nearly nude. She had underwear on, and she had a pregnancy suit on over that. And this constant referring to this man as Justin's friend, there are a lot of friends in the business. That doesn't mean that's all they are. This guy is educated for the screen. We went through his entire IMDb earlier. He has toured with the Tony Award-winning acting company. He's been on numerous hit television shows. He's an award-winning Shakespearean-trained actor with an MFA in acting from UCLA. He's more qualified than Blake and Ryan. This is not some schmo off-the-street friend. "Hey, you want to come get a peek of Blake in a pregnancy outfit, pretending to give birth?" It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the fact that they might be friends. What does that have to do with anything? He was probably the highest-trained actor on the whole set. And they can't say he did anything wrong. He did nothing wrong to Blake. So why does this keep getting brought up? That guy must be so offended to keep being dragged in these legal documents. They don't think about these people and these accusations that they're making. All because Blake can't face to her well-deserved criticism and Ryan's jealous of Justin, in my opinion. admitted to asking Mr. Heath to show Miss Lively his wife's post-home birth video. That's not what they said before, though, is it? Didn't she say nude videos of his wife? Thanks for clearing this up for us, Ryan, so I don't even have to review this again. His wife's post-home birth video. And then he mentions Exhibit A-253, but these aren't numbered, so I don't know what he's even talking about. But he says, no denial of biting and sucking of lip when script only states kissing scene. Are you mad, Ryan? Are you mad that your wife sucked and bit Justin's lip? Is that what this is about?
So this is the scene, this is the montage, right? It's actually two different scenes, but we can see them making out. And what's really key here is that you can see that she's biting his lip in this specific makeout scene, right? So this was actually filmed in January 2024, which was after the all-hands meeting that she had with Sony and Ryan Reynolds and Baldoni and the producers, right? Why is that important? Well, because the allegations of harassment were made in phase 1 of filming, which happened prior to January 2024. So all of the alleged harassment is what she claimed happened prior to 2024. Which is interesting considering the lip biting, like she's literally sucking on his lip, which is what she accused him of doing in her harassment lawsuit.
Is that what this is about? Because that clip's out there. We've all seen it. Do you not like seeing the enthusiastic way that your wife kissed him? But she sure didn't seem to hate it. Is that what's got you mad, Ryan? Did you come home from filming and feel like your wife was a little too close to Justin? You saw some features in him that you don't have? Got all insecure? Were you keeping her from going back to work? Did she have to convince you to let her go back to work? So you came up with this 17-point thing? Put your foot down? Said someone's got to be there with you to watch you? Is that what happened? Is she doing all this to make you happy? Because she was having him over to your apartment, working late into the night, while you were in another country filming? Were they texting a lot? Did you see her flirty, yummy texts? All her mentions of sexy? Because when filming wrapped at the beginning of the strike, they were on friendly terms. Then all of a sudden, she wasn't coming back to work. No explanation. Then she's finally coming back, and you demand everybody come to your apartment, you scream your head off, and put out this 17-point list, conditions for her to return to work. Were these your conditions, Ryan? Because all of your actions and mockery seem more like a jealous husband to me than a man trying to protect his wife from a predator. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now he goes on, shredding more of Justin's well-meant words, as I said, as an older man trying to give wisdom by speaking of his own shortcomings that he's embarrassed of from decades ago when he was a teenager and a young 20-something-year-old. He's talking about the porn industry, how these young boys are watching it, how it's violent, and no one sits down and teaches us about consent. We learn it through porn. Now this is the point I said we were going to get to. We're all adults, we're going to speak like adults. This is a very real topic. And it's a topic that should have more attention, because it's not taken seriously. And he's trying to direct attention to it, because it's harmful. When young boys learn about sex through violent or unrealistic porn, it does in fact have a bad effect on them. It gives them an unrealistic viewpoint, and doctors have said, just as he says here, it affects the formation of neural pathways in the brain that causes you to see the world very differently. How do we know this is true? Because doctors and therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists and behavioral experts of every kind and marriage counselors and sex therapists have all seen the devastating effects of this. No one likes to talk about it, but there are swaths of young guys who are struggling with performance in their actual relationships because of porn addiction and because of what their brain thinks sex is supposed to be. There are devastated couples where the men would rather saunter off to the bathroom with their phone than be in bed with their wife or their partner. This is a real conversation that Justin was trying to have with men. He wasn't glorifying porn. He wasn't glorifying the conception that it put in his brain about women and sex. He was trying to help men and boys in this sick, twisted, perverse way that Ryan's trying to say that all of this good that he was trying to do is showing that he's a predator and a creep. It's disgusting because it's not what Justin said at all. This is messed up, Ryan. You might need some help, Ryan. Because you know what I bet Justin would never do in the age that you guys are at now? And you're older than him? I bet he wouldn't think that exposing a woman's breasts in a room full of people would make them feel like they were winning the lottery. Maybe instead of combing through these books to try to find reasons to mock Justin, you might try to absorb them and be a better man. Ryan. And he just goes on, talking about Justin repeatedly confessing in public appearances that he spent years of his life mistreating women. This is not the message at all. And then he has the nerve to cite a case about an adulterer. Let's talk about treatment of women, Ryan. How have you treated women? What's your history of treatment of women? How'd you treat Scarlett, Ryan? You and Blake both. How did that go? Weren't you married in your 30s when you met on the set? And Blake was what, 23? Aren't people saying they saw you guys sneaking around and staying in hotels? How were you treating your wife there? How were you treating Blake? Taking advantage of some young, starstruck, inexperienced girl? Making her your dirty little secret? What kind of behavior is that? You know what, Ryan? I have a friend who saw you guys at a restaurant when you were still married to Scarlett. And you just kept staring at him. I don't know if you liked what you saw. He is a very distinguished, handsome man. Or if you were trying to sort out if he was the kind that was going to rat you out or snap a picture. But yeah, Ryan, tell us more about how you treat women. Justin speaking regrettably about his actions as a teen and a young adult, but how old were you, Ryan, when you cheated on your wife? When you disrespected Blake by treating her like a dirty little secret? How old were you when you exposed Olivia Wilde's breasts to everyone and then made a joke of it? Did a whole interview circuit about it? Put your hands back on them again? These pages are a despicable misrepresentation of facts. And what's more, they shouldn't even be in this document. They are well outside of this box. They are not the food he was given to cook with. And they all know it. Then they have the nerve to say that he's suing Mr. Reynolds for $400 million for simply pointing out in private what Mr. Baldoni has bragged about in public. Where did he brag about this stuff? That is really sick. We see you, though. Go take a look at your Instagram after you put this out there in the wild. Thought you were so smart. You just keep making mistake after mistake. You're out there hiring expensive attorneys, expensive PR people, expensive agents, a CIA guy. What else out there? How much money are you throwing at these people, but you can't control yourself? You're your own worst enemy, making yourself look worse day by day. Keep wasting your money on these people trying to unbury you from this hole you keep digging. Then you outright use the R word. Assault, consent. That's disgusting. The mischaracterizations of Justin and his words. There's no excuse for these. And you know what? Thanks to you bringing these in like this, guess what days of trial are gonna be? You're gonna have to sit there and watch this stuff. And hear it read out. And so's the jury. And if your Instagram is any indication of what that jury's gonna think when they actually see this, compared to the accusations you've put on paper here, who do you think's gonna win? Is this a preview of what the trial's gonna be? With you guys constantly breaking the rules just like you do with this document? Because I don't think the judge is going to allow this. But keep going. Keep taking yourself, your wife's friend, your friend. Just keep dragging them all down with you. But you might want to consider that you're a father of 4 young kids. And what you guys are doing now is going to affect their future. I mean, we're not the only mommies out there, right? Us mommy sleuths, that you call us. When you don't even know if we're mommies or not. But you guys are parents. And so, we are only on page 15. There are 38 pages. So I'm going to stop here. So I can get this out to you, hopefully, soon. And we'll get to the rest of it as soon as I can. Till then, this is Cassidy O'Connell, saying stay well and stay tuned.